Oops, I did it again. I bought more pastel paper, and I definitely did need to buy more pastel paper. Oops, you can go insane and not ride in the rain. I'm not that mentally sane. Right, let's open this bad boy. So I have no clue what to expect. I did watch a couple videos like back when a couple of pastel artists got their hands on this paper, like in September. I don't know how they got it. They must have been sent it from Canson, but I haven't really looked at anything since, so my brain's pretty fresh as to what I'm expecting here. If I were to guess, velvet kind of sounds like velour, so maybe something like that or just a soft surface. But I've heard it's great. Other than that, I don't know what to expect. Cut. Scissors, do what you were made for. Here's the pad. I did get the pad. I couldn't find any single sheets, or maybe I didn't look hard enough. This paper is the browns, I want to say. Let's see if I can find the English. Okay. This is the brown tones paper, so you can see these are the 3 separate colors. I'm guessing there are 3 different colors, 4 sheets of each, and this is 12.6 by 16.1 inches. I already know what to compare it to just by the first glance. It's most like Pastelmat. You know what it might be like? It's Pastelgrain. I don't know. I'll have to compare. Okay, this is nothing like velour. Alright, let me show you these pages, and then I'll do a close-up of the texture. Ooh, I like that color. It's like a grayish khaki warm color. I really like that. Umber, I guess. And then a rich, like chocolatey, milk chocolatey, caramel sienna, we'll call it, because we're artists. Ooh, and it's like the coffee color when you put a lot of milk in it, or like an ochre. Okay, cool. Cool. It's very pastel matty. I cannot wait to test this out. Let's do it, shall we? Are any of you insane like me and keep your like tiny little pastel paper scraps because the paper's so expensive and you feel like you're gonna waste it? Yeah, me too. But a lot of cart, but I see some. Ooh, there's Pastelgrain and Pastelmat. Perfect. See, it comes in handy. I don't have to shred up a nice piece of Pastelmat or Pastelgrain. Ooh, it comes out of the pad really nicely. I know, like my Lacarte pads, which no shade on Lacarte, it's my favorite paper, but it is so hard to get out of the pad. You like literally rip the paper getting it out because it's glued in there. This came out like butter. The paper is 12.6 by 16.1 inches. So already it's kind of annoying for, you know, US standard frame sizes. So I'm going to cut it down anyway. Typically I would go as big as possible, so I like cut it down to a 12 by 16. But I want a bigger scrap for you guys, so I'm going to sacrifice a larger sheet of paper to experiment on this new surface. What are you doing? He is my Velcro boy. I make a songs about him 'cause he's so cute. And he's always near me, so I make up songs about him. So maybe I'll do 11 by 14 so I can save that for like something fun. It's a very like floppy paper. A lot floppier than Pastelmat. Pastelmat is a little more stiff than this. Like it's not wrinkling, it's just, maybe it's heavy. It's like it's good quality, it's not thin, it's just got that wobble. All right, we have the Canson Velvet, Pastelmat, and Pastelgrain. What I think I want to do first is use a hard pastel to highlight the texture of each of these papers. So, see how with the white hard pastel it really highlights the texture of the paper? Alright, that's Canson Velvet, Pastelmat, and Pastelgrain. I would honestly say that Canson Velvet is a hybrid, as far as texture goes, is a hybrid between Pastelmat and Pastelgrain. Alright, I'm going to see how it does with layering soft pastel. Wow, look how vivid that is. This paper's curled, so it's hard to get a stroke down. Oh, love that color. This is a Sennelier soft pastel. And then our second layer. Wow. Pastelmat is like a unicorn. Like, it somehow feels like the tooth is filled already, but you can just keep layering it on. You can just keep layering on it. And Pastelgrain. It's got that nice texture. Still got a lot of valleys of the paper that we can fill up. All right, layer 3. Oh, oops. Let's see. Pastelmat's already starting to get filled up. Oh, that Pastelgrain's beautiful. All right. Layer 4. All right, it looks like it's starting to fill up on the Canson Velvet. Definitely full on the Pastelmat. And looks great on the Pastelgrain. So yeah, I would say that it's fair to say that the texture of this Canson Velvet is somewhere in between Pastelmat and Pastelgrain. All right, now I'm going to do mark making with the soft pastel and layer it and see how paper handles it. It goes on so vividly, it's so pretty. Oh, beautiful. I mean, gorgeous on all the paper. Right. Start to do some layering with our mark making. A little tic-tac-toe action. No complaints so far. The second layer layered over the other marks opaquely. And then with these marks, I'm putting down quite much more. I'm putting down significantly more pressure than I did with these layers that I scumbled. Okay. Looking good. Starting to get full on some of the areas where they're all intersecting. Looking good. Beautiful. Looks good, but it's definitely transparent in the areas where they're all overlapping. Looking pretty good. All right, let's go with a different hue. All right. Looks pretty good. There's just this one little patch right here where it's layering over a few different colors that starting to get a little patchy. Oh yeah, that's, see how muddy it is? The orange loses its vibrance because it's mixing with the colors beneath it. And that Pastelgrain, it's holding on, but you can see a couple areas where it's getting patchy. All right, I'm gonna do one more. Oh yeah, that's getting muddy. See those areas where it's darker? All the pigments are starting to mix together. That's really gross looking. And even the Pastelgrain's starting to get patchy. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what use case this would be, only just for experimentation, but I don't know how many people are going to do a ton of loud marks on, you know, one after another on top of each other. It's just for fun. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing, but with the harder pastels. So these are Rembrandts, just to see how the paper takes a different hardness pastel. Looks pretty good. You can see the texture there. Again, it's relatively similar value to the paper, so it's sort of hard to see. Layer 2 looks good. Looks good on the pastel mat. And on the pastel grain, of course. All right, layer 3. Looks good. Looks pretty good. Looks great. Looks good. Looks pretty good. Looks good. All right, so that's 4 so far, 4 different layers. The reason why you're able to get more layers on each of the paper with the hard pastel is because this stick is more compact than the soft pastel, so you're able to get more pigment. So less pigment comes off of the pastel stick onto the paper with each stroke, so it fills up those peaks and valleys of the paper a little bit slower than it does with the soft pastel. All right. Layer 5, layer 5, layer 5. It's looking pretty good on all of the papers, gotta say. Layer 6 looks pretty good. Now, because I'm going a little bit darker, it's gonna start to look muddy, because typically when you layer over, you know, one pastel layer and then another pastel layer, but it's a different value, lighter or darker, it's gonna look a little muddy. Still looks pretty good on all of the papers. All right, I think this is layer 7. All right, that's starting to get filled. All right, let's go with one more layer, layer 8. Yeah, it's starting to get pretty filled. That is just a mess. It's not taking any of the pastel. It's like literally sliding over the surface. That's kind of doing the same thing. So with hard pastel, you're not going to get more than 7 layers without it looking yucky. Alrighty, and now I'm going to do the same thing where I do strong, bold mark making with the hard pastel, and then layer over it. Just do that there. Layer 2. Layer 3. Layer 4. Kind of cheating since these hues are all pretty similar. Looks good so far. Layer 5. Looks good. Little transparent in areas. Looks pretty good on the pastel grain. All right, let's do a 6th layer. Starting to get a little transparent on the Canson Velvet. Ooh, smudgy on the pastel mat. Those two are performing pretty like equivalently. What is this, layer 7? I probably wouldn't do more than that. All right, now let's try some pastel pencils. These are all very different hues and values. This is really impressive. All of the papers are. I decided to layer the dark over the light value just so that we could get a really good look at how the colors are interacting. I could keep layering with the pastel pencils because they're so compact of pigment. It's going to take ages to fill up the tooth of either of these papers. They're all great for pastel pencils. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do hard marks with the pastel pencil over the 4 layers that I created. So blue looks great. I'm bearing down hard. Go light, looks great. Great. And then we can go dark. That looks a little transparent. Okay, weird. So with the hard pencils, both pastel mat and pastel grain seem to work better than when I layer pastel pencil over the other pastel pencil layers on the Canson Velvet. Am I crazy, or does that look more vibrant than that? I feel like, let me try one more. Muddy, brighter, brighter. Okay, so weirdly enough, I'm seeing that somehow the pastel pencils are performing better on the pastel matte and the pastel grain. They just don't seem as vibrant on the Canson Velvet. Weird. Weird! Alright, now for some PanPastel. I don't use PanPastel all that often, but I feel like people are curious to see how it works. Okay. Goes on so smoothly on the pastel matte. And the pastel grain. Am I a little crazy that it goes on splotchy? Yeah, it seems like it's like this. The texture is like stickier on the sponge, and it's a little streakier. See how soft that? It's like diffuse. Even on the really textured pastel grain, that's like it like catches the sponge. All right, weird. Right, it blends pretty nicely. That blends perfectly. So does that. All right, let's do like maybe a second layer. Really saturate the tooth of that paper. It's definitely getting better the more pigment that I add. It's a really nice gradient. So I'm guessing that those initial layers with the PanPastel, they're just kind of hard to get into the fibers of the paper. All right. I'm gonna blend that in, and then I'm going to do a separate little thing under here to where it's like solid pigment, just so we can layer over it. I'm really pushing that pigment in there. Okay. I'm gonna take a soft pastel and layer over the PanPastel. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wow. Now I'm gonna do the same thing, but on the areas where the PanPastel is a little more saturated. Still gorgeous. It's a little streaky, but looks good. Great, wow. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing with the hard pastel. Pretty good. Looks pretty good. That works really well. Now for the saturated area. Great, great, great. I would say that these two are working the best. This is a little transparent because the tooth of the paper is so saturated. And now with pastel pencil. Okay, that's very transparent. Wow. That barely goes on. That literally doesn't, no pigment comes off on the Canson Velvet. Wow, let's try this. Wow, that looks great. Same thing, no pigment, that's too saturated. Amazing. A little bit better. You still get some pigment that comes off, but those are like literally see-through. Let me see if I can really bear down. Okay, if I really bear down, some comes off. Let's try this. Like this is with all my might, just without breaking the pencil. Ew, no bueno. The pastel grain worked, but not the pastel matte. Let's try the Canson Velvet. No. All right, I'm finding that this behaves similarly. The Canson Velvet behaves similarly to velour regarding pastel pencils. It's just doesn't seem to be ideal. Even the finer grain pastel matte is working a little bit better than this is. Strange. Alrighty, I honestly had no clue what to expect going into this. I really figured that Canson Velvet would be more like velour, but I was wrong. It's a lot like pastel matte and pastel grain, like a hybrid of the two. It's a beautiful paper, and if you work anything like I do, it's a more than suitable paper to paint with. I just maybe wouldn't use it if you're using pastel pencil, but that's up to you. I mean, it works really well solid, but just layering any further onto that, for whatever reason, it just has a hard time. But I had fun. Did you have fun? You know what? I don't care if you had fun. I had fun. Just kidding. I hope you had fun. Alrighty, guys. That's pretty much everything I can think of to do. Canson Velvet is a great paper. It's much like Pastelmat and Pastelmat's sister or father, as I so weirdly put it last video, and well, in my Pastelgrain video. Pastelmat's father. If Pastelgrain is Pastelmat's dad, Canson Velvet is Pastelmat's older brother. They're all three great pastel papers. So that was fun. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I think I'm gonna try and do a full painting with the Canson Velvet, so stay tuned for that. Bye, guys. Cringe. I'm the cringiest girl in all the land. Everybody cringes when I walk in a room.